All right, so it's time to welcome everybody to our webinar on bearing down. Hello there. I think some of you might be listening out there in California, and I'll be out there in a few days joining you. Meanwhile, I know we've got people in the UK and goodness only knows where else. So thank you all for coming. My aim in this webinar is to talk about bearing down and to really ask the question, would you like to be somebody who could push your hand forward reliably, who has what has been known in the trade as an independent seat, and who really doesn't feel the need to pull on the reins rather than just tries to resist the temptation to pull on the reins? Because the bottom line is that what happens within your torso determines whether you're going to pull back on the reins or whether you're going to be able to be a rider who can give their hand forward, as we all know we'd like to be able to do. And that means that if I were coaching you, it would be a waste of time, my time and your money, me saying to you, don't pull, don't pull, don't pull, don't pull. I've told you not to pull. I'm telling you again, don't pull. Because the bottom line is, in order to not pull, you have to have something else to do instead. And that something else is what we call bear down. And it's to do with stabilizing your torso. So what the world unfortunately doesn't realize enough out there is that riding ultimately is not about relaxing. It's about being able to stabilize the body on top of a moving medium. As the horse is going boing, 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 boing at 8 miles an hour, a really good rider can kind of stay there and look as if they're doing nothing. And people buy into the myth that the rider actually is doing nothing, or the rider is sitting there relaxed, when actually the rider is doing a huge amount within her body to stay there and make it look like nothing. So let's take this as an example. Think of a space hopper. In America, I think these were called hippity hops, the kind of balls that kids would play on. So those ones, and kids could pop about on them. Or you could just think of a gym ball that wouldn't have the handles. And let's suppose you've got this gym ball and you're sitting on it and you're managing to make it hop across the riding arena. Okay, so maybe you're there on the hippity hop, you're holding the handles, you're hopping across the riding arena, and then supposing you let go of the handles and you try to stay on the ball and you try to stay hopping. By analogy, what would happen to an awful lot of riders would be the ball would bounce away from them and they would fall off the back of the ball because they're not doing what you'd have to do to keep yourself on the ball on each hop, right? If you were just there relaxed, the ball would hop away from you. And if you had reins attached to something, you could pull on those and possibly not topple backwards off the ball. But the whole point is to be able to stay with the ball without being able to, or without needing to, pull on something. So what that really means, if you can do that, is that you can in your body match the forces which the horse's movement exerts on your body. So he goes a certain amount, you go with him, you both hop along together, it looks like you're doing nothing, there's no need to pull on the reins to stabilize yourself, there's no what I call water skiing. So the old English hunting seat, you know, stick your feet forward, push in the stirrups, pull on the reins, the horse tows you along. My description of that is water skiing. So instead of water skiing, you, as it were, hop along with the hippity hop. So we could say that bearing down would be the equivalent of if you were on a bicycle, pedaling rather than freewheeling. And if you ever see, let's say, a trail ride of beginner riders out somewhere, and most of them have never sat on a horse, you'll see those riders looking really passive. There's no bear down there at all. They look really passive, and normally the horse is just wandering around because the rider, even though she looks like she's doing nothing, is doing the equivalent of pedaling a bicycle as opposed to freewheeling. So I can tell you lots of stories about bearing down, and it is a massive watershed between the people who've got it and the people who are struggling and who haven't got it. And those will be the people who've been told not to pull, they've read the books about not pulling, they've watched the DVDs about pulling, they've been to the seminars about not pulling, and they get on their horse and they pull again. And maybe they go to bed that night and shed tears of grief and vow to themselves they won't pull tomorrow, and they get on and they do. Because until your body can match the forces in the back to front direction, you are doomed to pull on the reins in the front to back direction. So it's a massive watershed as to whether your body operates in the back to front direction matching the forces, or the front to back from the reins backwards because you're not matching the forces.